Hello, my name is Heidi Kesler, and I am the executive director of a center that is called the Center for Academic Belonging and Learning Excellence. And really, we are just all about helping students to be successful academically. And so we are going to have a little bit of a conversation about how you, the supporter of this student, can do your job in supporting them, particularly with academic success. So we are going to talk through some questions, and those are available. Some of those are available on page 4 in your handbook. And but we'll also talk through those questions that you can talk to your student about and to each other, and just good conversations that will help you and your student start off really having a common understanding of expectations and how you will work through things as they come up. So first, I want to talk to you a little bit about our center. So this is a photo of our center, and also ways that you can get in touch with us. So we are at able@usu.edu or www.usu.edu/able. And your student, if they're in Logan, can come to the second floor in the library, the northeast corner, and find us there. You'll also find us towards the end of the parent handbook, some information about all the things that we provide for students. But if you can think about academic success and things that might help a student, then we're likely a place to start. And so please feel free to send your student our way. Our name, Academic Belonging and Learning Excellence, is the acronym ABLE, and really that's what we're all about, is helping every student so that they know that they are able to benefit from this college experience and achieve their goals of receiving a degree at Utah State University. It's really broken into 2 parts. Academic belonging. We want your student to know that they fit at USU, that they have found their people, that they are they belong here academically, that they can do what it takes to be successful. And then learning excellence, we want them to continue to develop skills and habits and techniques of a lifelong learner. That's so important to us. I'm going to put in a plug for USU 1010 University Connections, which is such a good course to help students really build a solid foundation as they come to Utah State University. And I want to show you, this is the book that they read. You can see it's not long. I think it's 52 pages, something like that. It's called Becoming a Learner. And really that's part of our mission as well in our center, to help students to tap into that they belong as a learner, and that they have the skills and techniques and habits to be excellent at being a learner. This is all focused really on something that a psychologist, C.R. Snyder, developed called hope theory. And he suggests that motivation is actually derived out of hope. And that hope is derived by having a clear identity. For our purposes, that identity is as a learner. And so if we think about the student being a learner as their identity while they're here, and then they need to tap into their agency. So what choices do they have? Where's their accountability in becoming a learner? And then what are their pathways forward? And I love that in this, it isn't that there's just a pathway, but that there's several, and students use that agency to choose which one they want to try, and that it's okay to fail. It's okay to realize that maybe that wasn't the best pathway, and then regroup, reconnect with their identity as a learner, reconnect with their agency, their choices, maybe even think about what choices they made that may have added to it not being really successful. And then what are the pathways forward now, and which one will they choose? And so it is this circle that we've got here of continued improvement. It's really important that students recognize the difference between being accountable and being independent. We don't want your student to think that they have to be 100% independent. In fact, if I were to say the phrase, "I can do it myself," um, what developmental stage do you think that really represents? I think most of us remember or are experiencing that that's a toddler. And yet so many of our new adults think that's what they're supposed to do. Oh, I'm an adult, I'm supposed to do it myself. And so if we can talk to them about how actually adults are really great at networking. Actually, adults are really great at seeking help and finding their services and their resources and their people. But they're accountable. And that's the difference. We're not saying somebody else is in charge of this. We're saying I own my identity as a learner. I'm accountable for that, but man, I'm going to use all the network, all the people around me that can help me to make the best choices and to learn and to grow. And that's what real adult behavior is. Along these lines, it's important that that we encourage them to be the ones who talk to the faculty or to the practitioners or to others, so that they recognize who their people are and that they're the ones building those relationships. So you as the support team, you support the student, and then the student seeks further support from others. I'm one of you. I have a daughter who is starting here at Utah State this fall, and this is easier said than done, certainly. We want to run interference a little bit for our students. It's a natural inclination for our kids that we want to make things as smooth as possible for them. But when we do that, we really do rob them from those growth experiences that happen when they are the ones who are speaking with their faculty or with others. I always laugh. A few years ago, I was giving a presentation, and then later in the fall, one of the parents who had attended called me and said, "Hey, I enjoyed your presentation. It's so great that there is a team to support my student. And my child is having a really hard time waking up for their 8 o'clock class. Could you go knock on their dorm door and wake them up?" That's not my job, right? And so that parent probably should not have directly contacted me and then asked for me to kind of circumvent their student's agency and accountability. And so if we as parents, and I look at myself here, can do the hard thing of allowing our students those growth opportunities to accept their own agency and their own accountability, that is great. So now we're going to go into what some of these questions are. And so our first question is, how can you help your student decide which program is the best fit for them? And then how will you react if or when they're unsure about their major? It might surprise some to know that the average student at Utah State, and I think this is true across the nation, changes their major 3 times. That's on average. Even more surprising to a lot of people is that our data shows students who change their major are more likely to graduate than those who don't. And obviously that is because the ones who feel stuck and don't ever change their major and just stay in something that isn't the right fit for them end up dropping out. And then they don't graduate and they're stuck there in that first major that wasn't the right fit for them. So have a conversation about your child about how it is okay to pivot and that there are majors they've probably never even heard of. There are jobs that maybe haven't even been invented yet that they may learn about over the next 4 years. And so it's important that they be ready to pivot and that they know you think that's okay, that it is okay for them to make some changes, even if it means backtracking a little bit. Having that freedom to do a little bit of exploration or changing their mind is so important. Um, I have kind of a magic formula for choosing your major or knowing if it's the right fit and therefore academic success. And that is that their aptitude plus their effort needs to equal their aspiration. So let me tell you how this kind of works. So we all have an aptitude, and that tends to be something that is just kind of intrinsic in us, that we have an aptitude for maybe the humanities, or we have an aptitude for serving people. And that it's pretty hard to change that part of the equation. So then we also all have the ability to put in effort, but we're not all equal in that. There may be some of our students who are needing to work a lot more hours than others and therefore can't put in the same effort. Or maybe they have family responsibilities or other responsibilities. Maybe just because of the way our brains are all wired differently, one person can put in more effort than another person. And so there's no value judgment on the amount of effort a student can put in, but we need to be really honest about that and not think, oh, yeah, you know, I can get by with 4 hours of sleep, therefore I can put in the effort that would be required. And so then our aspiration. And sometimes it may be that the easiest thing to change here actually is our aspiration or, our major, our goal. So an example of this is we have a professor in our communication studies department here, and he is first in his family, and he had this idea in his mind that college is supposed to be hard. And so he was determined to put in a lot of effort. He also was determined to do something that didn't come easily to him, and so something that was contrary to his aptitude. And so he was like, okay, low aptitude, but really high effort, and I can do this. And I don't even know what that major was, but I know that it was hard, and he felt good about that. Um, as he started to take different classes, he took a communication studies class for his general education requirement at his university, and he really enjoyed it. He had lots of fun in it. It came easily to him. He was willing to put in even more effort because he enjoyed it. And his professor came to him and said, "Have you thought about changing your major to this?" And the student said, "Well, no, because college is hard. This isn't that hard." And the professor said, "Oh, but it is. For many students, this material is hard, but you have an aptitude for it. And because you're enjoying it, you're putting in more effort." And so then this man did, in fact, change his aspiration to fit this formula. So have those conversations with your child. Also recognize that, again, it's not a straight path for most careers where you get a specific degree that leads to a specific job, and then you stay in that job forever. most of our students will end up in jobs that are new, that are evolving, and it isn't just a straight shot across. And so talk to them about that and help them understand that they need to maybe make some adjustments. Again, I'm going to plug this book. When they enroll in Connections, they will have access to this book electronically. Maybe have them share some of the things that they learn out of that, because this book does talk about that the purpose is to become a learner and not necessarily just to fulfill certain career path goals, but that when you become a learner, and this is one of my favorite things to do, when you become a learner, and here we have learner, you also become an earner. And intrinsic, embedded in becoming a learner is the ability to also find a job that will earn you money. So important conversations to have with your student. Another important conversation is actually about conversations. How often do you expect to communicate with your student? And is that the same as how often they expect to communicate with you? What modes of communication will you use? So this can go both directions, right? You may have a child who really wants to run every single question by you. And you are thinking, like time for you to kind of leave the nest, cut the apron strings, and start to make some of those decisions yourself. How will you tell your student that if they are being too dependent upon your feedback in making decisions, or even your advice in making decisions? What will you say to them? Or maybe you have a student who is like, bye-bye, and they're ghosting you, you're not hearing from them as often as you would like. That could be really hard too. And so how will you have that conversation? And I really suggest with all of these conversations, they are so much better had before emotions are intense. And so have the communication discussion earlier rather than later, before they come here. If you both kind of set up expectations, that will be really helpful. It doesn't mean you're going to get it 100% right. It doesn't mean that there won't be tweaking or even some hurt feelings at times, but you'll have a foundation for that. Logan is a really safe community, and we have wonderful public safety and police personnel to help. But you may be coming from, your child may be coming from a community that is much smaller and comparatively even more safe. So what does that look like, and what can you talk to them about? Please look at the section in the parent guide about campus safety, and make sure that your student has in their phone the phone number so that they can contact public safety office at any time, because they can get an escort from a building to their car. They can get free help getting into their car if they've locked the keys, or if they're having car issues. There are many things that public safety can do to help your student feel and be safe while here. So make sure you're having this conversation. What are they nervous about? What plans can they put into place to help mitigate those nerves? And just how can you support them in that way? A good conversation to have before you drop them off. Here's another one that can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable at times, and that is financial responsibility. To think through all the things that you currently pay for, and all of the things that your student will be needing to pay for, and have a conversation. Who is responsible for what parts of that? Um, and if you are helping to fund your student, will they get a lump sum at the beginning of each semester, and then they need to learn how to balance that budget? Or do they get a stipend every week, every month? What does that look like? And do you both understand kind of the parameters of that financial responsibility? Think about some of the things that maybe you're thinking, I'm so excited that they get to learn how expensive utilities are. Or I'm so excited that they now get to learn to pay their own insurance or their own cell phone bill. Whatever those things are, food, laundry, make sure that you've talked through that. And then you also have an idea of how will you discuss that? If you're paying for it initially, but they are expected to reimburse you, is that via Venmo? Is that some other way that you expect them to pay for things? So will they have a credit card? Really important topic for a family conversation, and do it before the need arises, so that you've laid a good foundation. Along with that, do you expect your student to get a job while they're in school? And how many hours do you think that they should work? We have lots of on-campus jobs. There's also lots of jobs within the community. Community jobs tend to pay a little bit more, but then you also have to figure out transportation back and forth. And then our on-campus jobs are typically really good to work around the students' class schedule. And so there's pros and cons both ways. Have that conversation. We have good data that actually shows that students who work between 10 and 20 hours a week while going to school do better academically. And that is because it forces them to work out a schedule. And so they can't procrastinate as much. They have a time that they need to fit studying in, and they need to do it during that time. And it kind of locks them in to then a good schedule. It also, employment teaches them good habits, punctuality and reliability, and, you know, how to follow through on tasks. All of those things are reinforced in an employment situation. And then finally, they tend to have a better understanding of the worth of a dollar. And so they start to make different choices about how they spend that money. So if they're helping to pay for their tuition or solely paying for their tuition, knowing how hard they had to work to make that money really helps them to not waste that tuition, and to utilize it by doing well. So, but have that conversation, and setting the data aside, you know your student best and what would be best for them. Maybe it's 5 hours, maybe 25 hours makes sense. Maybe the first semester you don't want them working until they kind of figure out some of the other things. So think through that, talk it over with them, and have some agreement. How will your student maintain a balanced life? This is so important. When students come and they are just all in on just the social, or they're all in but just on the academics, things start to unravel. It's so important that they understand that there needs to be balance. So we have lots of extra and co-curricular activities, events, and clubs that your students can get involved in. Think through and talk to your student about what they will do. This is particularly important if they tend to be content sitting alone in their room. Even the most introverted person needs that human contact. The Surgeon General couple of years ago, coming out of COVID, said that we are now facing an epidemic of loneliness, and we certainly see that with our students. And when they are not interacting with others, if they're not taking care of their bodies, if they are skipping meals, which students tend to do either for financial reasons or time, or they're just nervous about going in to eat a meal by themselves, that's not taking good care of their balance. So talk to them about that. Again, you know your student. What is the area that is most likely to get a little out of balance for your student? And then help them find the activities, the people that will help them restore that balance or maintain that balance. It's so important. There's so many things that we take for granted, but does your student know their health history? Have a conversation about that. Are they allergic to penicillin, for instance? Are there other medications or foods or things that they are allergic to that maybe you've just kind of kept away from them and they don't really think about? What are some other medical things or health history? What surgeries have they had and what were the dates? Those are the kinds of things that we as adults have to know. And if they, need to go to the health clinic or to a doctor, they'll need to know that information. Are they going to still be under your insurance? Will they need to get their own plan? Will they keep the family doctor and just plan their regular visits for when they are home? Or do they need to find an orthodontist up here or a dentist or whatever? And so talk through all of those things. I also think it's not a bad idea to have your student set up an appointment with a doctor before they leave so they get that experience. It's not a bad idea for them to kind of have a physical before they come to school, just kind of baseline it. And if they make that appointment and then they go to that appointment, that can be really helpful for them and give them the confidence that, oh, I can do that. That wasn't so scary. So have them do that once with you kind of as a safety net so that when they're here and you aren't, they know that they can do that. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is the importance of a learning community. We talked earlier about academic belonging, and that's so important that your student know that they belong here. And we do that at Utah State through learning communities. It's important that your student recognizes that they are the one who will build their learning communities. In high school and elementary school, if there was a need, especially an academic need, then somebody noticed that usually and would then invite you and your student in and say, these are the things we're going to do to help this student. Maybe it was they seem like they're getting bored, and so we're going to give them some extra opportunities to increase their learning. But usually it was them reaching out or you reaching out. It's important that the student realizes now they're in charge. They're going to be the one who's reaching out and build their learning community. I like to think of it as 4 Ps, the 4 Ps that should be part of their learning community. First of all, their parents or their support team from home, right? So important. So talk to your students, ask them how things are going, what they're learning, and support them. And then their professors, such an important, really critical member of the learning community. And yet one that students tend to shy away from a bit. And so if you can encourage them, go talk to your professors. Every professor will have office hours or drop-in hours, and they sit, and I have heard so many say, nobody comes to see me. I wish they would come see me. And so encourage your students to stay after class just long enough to say, hey, I enjoyed that lecture. or that was really interesting. I'm excited to hear what we're going to learn next time. Things that can help them build a relationship with a professor, really important to build that. We have a professor over in physics, and she says that it really makes her sad when she hears students say, my parents or my high school teachers said that my professors wouldn't care about me. And she says, oh my goodness, professors care so deeply about students. But the difference is that our caring manifests itself not in us reaching out so often and saying, hey, you know, you really need this, or you need to have an extension on this assignment, or all those kind of things, but rather we care about our students as adult learners. So we expected them to initiate most of that. And we have professors who certainly will reach out to students, especially after a test. But for the most part, we expect the students to be accountable for their learning. So parents is the first P, professors the second. The third is peers. I always am amused when I see students and they all have their earbuds in and they head into class and they still have the earbuds in and they sit not having any interaction with their peers because they're tuned in to whatever they're listening to. So my recommendation is to tell students, take those out when you enter any building and then say hi to the other students in the class. When you sit down, say to the other students, how did that test go? Or are you understanding this concept? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. Are you loving it as much as I am? But those conversation starters that can so often result in, do you want to study together? And studying together is proven to increase learning substantially. And so getting those peers involved in their learning community is so important. And to me, it starts with taking those out and opening the mouth. The fourth P is practitioners. That would be the people in my office. That would be advisors. So within my office, we have success coaches that will work one-on-one with students, and they are able to help them to develop the learning techniques and habits necessary for success. Certainly, we are some of those practitioners, but also we have therapists and others that you have learned about throughout parent orientation. So all of these practitioners are here and should be part of the learning community. So parents, professors, peers, and practitioners should make up that learning community. Thank you so much for entrusting your students to come to Utah State. I really view it as an honor, and we are here to support them and to provide them opportunities to be successful. And part of that success, probably the key to that success, is them recognizing their agency in becoming a learner. So thank you so much.